Good morning. Welcome to chanting on this very special day, Vijaya Ekadashi. I'm Atma Darshan, or Laura Santoro. I received the name Atma Darshan in India when I took Diksha into sannyas or renunciation. And one of the things that I loved most about my journeys to India was the chanting. Today, we're having a free chanting program through Dharmic Kshetra Yoga, focused on Bhagavad Gita, which is one of the primary yoga philosophy texts that informs modern yoga practice even today. We'll start with a bit of an introduction. What is Vijaya Ekadashi? Well, Ekadashi is a special day that happens twice each lunar month, during which the Bhagavad Gita is chanted. At least in ashrams in India, the whole thing is chanted. It takes a long time. Very impressive. Today's Ekadashi is called Vijay. And if you were here for last time, that was Jay. Jaya is how it's often transliterated. And today, Vijay means special victory. Jay, victory. Vijay, special victory. What's the difference? Well, there's a chapter title in the Bhagavad Gita that is Jnana Vijnana Yoga. So Jnana is knowledge or wisdom, and Vijnana is special knowledge or wisdom. And as Krishna talks about it in the Gita, it's kind of like the difference between theoretical knowledge, which is valuable, but also experiential knowledge. And Krishna says once you have both theoretical and practical knowledge of something, your knowledge is complete. So today is not just victory, but complete victory or special victory. And what is this victory over? Well, one of our greatest obstacles in life, which we'll get to a story about that. Um, but a little bit more here about chanting. Why chant? And this program is especially for Westerners who might not be familiar with chanting that much as a spiritual or meditative practice. It's Heart Health Month, and last time I talked about some of the cardiovascular benefits of chanting. But today we're going to focus on another aspect, which is coming together. Well, chanting at the beginning of any yoga program or practice, or chanting in general, tends to bring a group together. That's why it's often done at the start of a program. Um, Even though it's quite early here in Cleveland, where I'm presenting this morning, you may have already had things that you've been doing today. I've already done my practice, my abhyang, and we're having a different experience coming into this. When we chant, we start to have the same experience. And if you've ever chanted or sung along with somebody, you know that as humans, we tend to want to harmonize, to reach the same tone, and to be together in that way, to strengthen the vibration. And that is part of the idea of chanting in general. It's uniting us. And the word yoga means union, not just with the different parts of ourselves or our inner core, but with all beings, the universe itself. I'm going to invite you to do some brief chanting. There are lots of chants, and some are nice and short. Some, especially in preparation for Bhagavad Gita chanting, are quite long. But let's start with something small that will help us be more present to each other. And that is chanting the mantra or the sound, Om, together 3 times. I'll just take a minute here to settle. And perhaps you can set an intention or sankalpa to feel more united with me, with your fellow human beings, with the world. And we'll be chanting Om 3 times. I'm taking a breath in, and you can join if you'd like. Take a moment to notice how that has helped you to feel. And if you did do the chanting, did you notice we got in a little bit of harmony? Feel free to comment. If you're a subscriber to this channel, you can comment in the chat and it will take a little bit, but I'll see it. And if you have questions or experiences to share, I'll be happy to remark upon those. If you're not a subscriber, you can hit the subscribe button, although you need to have subscribed for at least 24 hours to comment today, but you'll be able to do it next time. Okay, so what's going on today? Vijaya Ekadashi falls on a Thursday, and that's said to make it even more special and powerful. But powerful in what way? There are three primary forces that are said to create, sustain, and then transform everything around us. Brahma is the creator, Vishnu, preserver or maintainer, and Shiva, destroyer or transformer. Thursday is said to be the day of Vishnu, which would be the day of tapping into the energy of maintaining ourselves, maintaining the world, and maintaining the cosmos. It's said when an Ekadashi, especially this one, falls on a Thursday, its effects are magnified. And the effects are to bring us success or victory over our challenges in life, especially our biggest challenges. So there are many ways to observe Ekadashi, and traditionally it's about fasting. Um, and then there's some other things you can do, like I've got my notes over here, taking a bath at sunrise, a small symbol of Vishnu, if you have one, like a little statue, and offering to Vishnu. Now, if you're a Westerner or not familiar with these practices, they might sound a little off putting, but they can be observed in modern life wherever you are. For example, fasting. Now, for many people, it's not practical with their jobs, especially like construction workers, heavy laborers. So think of fasting perhaps of just restraining from consuming something which may not be benefiting you. It could be a certain type of food. Like today, perhaps you say, I'm going to restrain myself from processed food, heavily salted food, some kind of food that is not ultimately sustaining for you. It could be, especially as Westerners, fasting from sensory input from the radio or television. That's not absolutely necessary. How many times do we use these to kind of fill the void and the silence? But what we're taking in doesn't make us feel any better, especially the news. Oftentimes, my experience when visiting an ashram in India, for example, is leave your cell phones home or turn them off. Don't keep taking in all this extra stuff from outside. Be in the moment. Maybe that could be a way to fast. If you don't have a little statue of Vishnu, you could bring to mind something that does sustain you, or put a little representation of that, like a photograph of somebody you love, or something that to you represents the higher self. Um, Same thing with kind of like a fruit or a vegetable, something that you feel is pure, nourishing. Maybe offer that to somebody you care about. We're going to do a little chant now to invoke the power of maintenance in ourselves, sustaining our individual selves, but also our community, our family, the world. And as mentioned, there are many different mantras we could use, but let's be simple today. Om Vishnave Namaha. Namaha means salutations or greetings. And Vishnave is the maintenance principle. Let's salute Vishnu, the maintenance principle, our ability to keep things alive in this world. And we'll just do this a few times. When we get to the final round, I'll slow down so that you know it's time to end. And you can listen at first if you'd like and join in whenever, or do the practice mentally. So I'm settling in and I'm taking a breath. Om Vishnave Namaha. 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 Good. So this evokes the spirit of sustenance in each of us and in the world around us, the ability to keep things alive, not just living things, but ideas and principles. And one of the principles for today that we're keeping alive is this idea of solving your problems, your challenges. You've got that power within you. There's a bit of a story. Oh, before I go into the story, especially if you're a Westerner not familiar with these ideas, what is Vishnu all about anyway? So I mentioned the sustainer. Vishnu is said to incarnate. The word avatar comes from Sanskrit. He's an avatar that appears in the world at various times when it needs help to keep going. And one of those avatars is said to be Krishna, the hero of the Bhagavad Gita, along with his friend Arjuna. Another avatar is Ram. In the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna shares many bits of wisdom with Arjuna, but in the Bhagavad Gita's source work, the Mahabharata, there are even more stories. And one story is about something very special Krishna said to Arjuna on this day. Arjuna is having troubles. If you know anything about the story, he's getting sucked into a civil war with his family. There are all kinds of challenges he has faced in his life as well. And Krishna says, if you want to overcome something that seems insurmountable, listen to my story about Ram. Ram was a great king who was exiled to the forest. And while there, the love of his life, Sita, was kidnapped by a demon. Fortunately, Ram had allies. His brother Lakshman was his staunchest ally, but Ram also encountered various other creatures, including highly intelligent monkeys. And he marched with his makeshift army to retrieve Sita from the hold of a demon who kept her on an island called Lanka off the coast of what we call India nowadays, but back then it was called Bharat. And actually, even now, is still called Bharat in many places. As they marched, Ram said to Lakshman, I don't know how I'm going to get my beloved back. What do you think I should do? And Lakshman, Ram's brother, said, you already know the answer inside you. You know everything. But if it makes you feel better to hear something from outside, there's a respected sage nearby. Let's go ask him. They did go and ask that sage, who said, observe today Vijaya Ekadashi by fasting, giving something up that means something to you, and by other means, and by holding this day special, you will get the answer to your problem. And Ram said, very well, I trust this advice. He made sacrifice that day. He fasted. He gave up other things. And he also turned within. After observing this special day and honoring it, when the army approached the coast, where just over a span of water, so near yet so far, was Lanka, where Ram's love Sita was imprisoned, Ram came upon an idea. In his army of monkey friends were two named Nila and Nala, who had been cursed. The curse was that anything they threw into water would not sink, but float. That's an interesting curse. There are all kinds of interesting curses that come up in these stories. But Ram realized this curse could actually be used to his advantage. He asked all that were with him to go and gather boulders and stones, and to have Nila and Nala throw those stones in the water. The stones wouldn't sink, they floated. And thus, Rama and his friends, his allies, were able to create a bridge from the mainland to the island, walk across it, and rescue Sita. Very symbolic. One of the symbolisms, well, one of the more obvious ones is Lakshman's reminder that we do know how to solve our problems inside, but sometimes we feel like we need to hear advice from outside. So the advice today would be honor yourself, restrain yourself. Take today as a special day, a sacred day to connect within. Another symbolic aspect of this story is that what we often think of as curses do benefit us in time. I'm very fortunate to instruct in teacher training programs for yoga. And many people in these programs say, I have a bad back, bad knees, I can't really teach yoga that well. And I often remind them, the things that you feel are holding you back will make you the best teacher. They will give you empathy. They will teach you how to adjust and modify, and you'll be able to support others with similar challenges. If everything is smooth for you, your empathy does not necessarily develop. Your full skills don't develop. And that's part of this, to help us realize that any obstacles in our way are not just to impede us, but they're actually to help us realize our full potential. They can help us grow so much. And then the symbolism of what is it that is really our biggest goal, desire, and dream that we need help with. And that is finding our true love. Rama was able to retrieve Sita. And in many of these stories, what Ram and Sita, or what other couples in stories like Shiva and Shakti would represent, is the two halves of ourselves. We might call them masculine, feminine. Jung would call them animus, anima. It's just the two opposite sides of ourselves. They reunite in love, and then we become whole. And that's actually what our biggest obstacle often is feeling this wholeness, this trust, this completeness within ourselves. And then it manifests as problems that seem to appear around us. Oh, that was a long setup, but I hope you enjoyed the story. Because now we go back to the Bhagavad Gita with Krishna, another avatar or incarnation of Vishnu, the preserving principle. Krishna's job is to help true wisdom and good people keep going in the world, stay alive, and spread their light. We will be doing some chanting of Gita in English. One of the things I endeavored to do with my study of the Gita which included living each verse for a day, and in hopes that that would help me to understand how to bring it more fully to modern life, especially in the West, where the tenets of the Gita can seem a little esoteric. Um, One of the things I tried to do with translating the Gita in my Song of Your Soul series is to put it in the original poetic rhythm. Makes it more lyrical and easier to remember and memorize. The verses we'll do today are present in Understanding the Song of Your Soul, also in the other books, Hearing the Song of Your Soul and Embracing the Song of Your Soul. But this one has some stories like we told today. If you have one of those books, you can be in there. But we'll jump around a bit. We'll start in chapter 11 for a verse, and then we'll go to chapter 18, the culmination. And if you don't have the book, look down below in the introduction, the things I wrote. I forget what that's called right off the top of my head, but the verses are there too. And it's not necessary that you see me. You can listen. You can just listen or chant along. But here we go into the Gita and some Gita chanting. There are different ways of chanting the meter, like there are different ways of singing a song. Sometimes different artists will have a different take on it. But this is one way that I heard in the ashrams in northern India. And in these parts of the book, one of the reasons I picked them is Krishna is saying to Arjuna that he's revealing this special knowledge, so special, it needs to be understood and maintained. And Krishna represents, in many ways, our deepest self, our true, eternal soul, the self with a capital S. And Arjuna represents our limited sense of self, our ego, the masks we put on for the world, our careers, the part of us that's kind of lost touch with the deepest self. Now, Krishna is trying to reunite with his friend Arjuna at a very soul level. And to do this, he's revealing knowledge. And he keeps reminding Arjuna just how special this knowledge is, kind of like what we talked about today, the knowledge of friendship, love, acceptance, and spiritual growth. So I'll start with verse 1147. And what I'll do is I'll chant it, just that verse. You can listen. Then I'll chant it again, and you can chant along with me if you so desire. After that, we'll take a longer stretch of 3 verses from chapter 18. So verse 1147, chapter 11, verse 47. Krishna speaks. O Arjuna, this supreme form. Whoops. That is the traditional way of chanting. It's called Anushtup, but there's another way of chanting called Trishtup. So suddenly, if you're like, hey, wait a minute, the usual way of chanting doesn't fit, it's a special meter. Okay. So I'm going to start this special meter. If you've heard the other meter before, you might go, what? But fear not. O Arjuna, this supreme form has been shown to you by my grace and own yogic power. Universal, splendid, infinite, primal, it has not ever been seen except by you. Okay, so that's a little different verse than some of you are used to, a little different meter. Okay, so let's try it together. O Arjuna, this supreme form has been shown to you by my grace and own yogic power. Universal, splendid, infinite, primal, it has not ever been seen except by you. Phew. That's one of the tricky parts of the Gita, and especially many translations, is these 2 meters. And what I tried to do in the books is set them off, one in italics and one just in regular text. So if you have the book and you're wondering why is one in italics, that's why. So Krishna is telling Arjun that he's revealing things that have never been revealed before. And this happens again in chapter 18, which is said to summarize the whole Gita. If you just want to read one chapter, it said this is the one. It wraps everything up. And this is in the more traditional meter that you may be familiar with. Um, it's 4 verses of 8 beats or matras instead of 4 of 11. So again, I'll start with the chant. I'll chant through one verse, then I'll stop. You can chant with me when I chant it again, and then I'll keep going. Before we do this, please take a moment and imagine that you have a chance to connect with your supreme self, your true self, that can remove all the obstacles from your life. If there's a particular obstacle or challenge you would like to have removed, you can bring that to mind. Okay. So this is Krishna chanting to Arjuna. Thus has this knowledge been explained by me to you, more secret than the secret after pondering it completely act as you will. All right, so I'll start chanting that again. Then I'll go through the verses with this rhythm and you can join in or listen. Thus has this knowledge been explained by me to you, more secret than the secret after pondering it completely act as you will. Here again my supreme message, the most confidential of all. Because I love you dearly, I shall tell you what benefits you. Think of me, be my devotee. Worship me, bow down to me, and I promise you, you will truly come to me, you are dear to me. So one of the reasons Bhagavad Gita is so touching is the translation is the song of Bhagavan, the incarnation of the Supreme in a form that loves you personally, that speaks to you directly, not something abstract and living in the sky, far away in another dimension, but something that cares enough to speak directly to you. And remember, that's often the little bit inside of us, that true self that knows. And this is the idea of if we can listen to that true self, me with a capital M, think of me or you with a capital U. Bow down to yourself, your own inner wisdom. When you do that, you will realize how dear you are to yourself. That true love that you've been looking for, that unconditional love that will support you in overcoming anything this world throws at you. And that's what these verses represent, that complete victory, not just over the world, but over yourself. This was a marvelous opportunity for me because one of my own biggest obstacles, like some of you, is feeling the need to get it right. So doing this live Making mistakes or tripping on words is perfect. It reminds me that if I love myself, the little mistakes don't matter. In fact, they make me more empathetic to people all around me who I would see as less than perfect with my judgmental ego. So perhaps this can be another lesson to us today. You will see things around you that you might think aren't perfect or right, but notice if you can see them through the eyes of deep unconditional love from yourself. And then do they transform, perhaps from curses or obstacles in your way to opportunities for greater growth? Thank you so much for being part of this morning. It's been a pleasure and an honor. Say to you goodbye or ciao, aloha, namaste, namaskar. Please keep your eye out for our next chanting session. Thank you. Again, I'm Atma Darshan or Laura Santoro. It's been a pleasure.